Hey guys, and welcome back to Cultured Boys, a show where two guys just want to have a chat. I'm Nathan, and as always, I'm joined by Pepe. And this week, we're talking about some big news. Oh my god!
Yeah, it's coming.
Nintendo Switch 2.
Yes, it's it's been speculated on for years at this point. Like, when's the Switch 2 happening? When's the Switch 2 happening?
Yep.
What was it? It's been out since almost 8 years now. Almost coming up to 8 years, right? 8 years.
Roughly, yeah.
And here it is, the Switch 2, which is surprising that it's actually called the Switch 2. I think that was actually my biggest thing.
Yes.
When was the last time we had a Nintendo console which had a 2 behind it? I don't think there's been one.
Never. The Game Boys have always had some sort of subtitle.
Mm-hmm.
The NES went to the SNES, so
Yeah.
Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah,
Same with the Famicom,
yeah.
N64, GameCube.
The Wii and then the Wii U. Yeah, and that's the only one, really. I mean, DS to 3DS. And then you've had the arguably, if you want to be, the 2DS. And it's like...
Okay, yeah. Shut
it's
up.
a 2. Yeah.
If anything, we've arguably had worse things than 2 because it was the new 3DS.
Yes, that's like a kind of like a small upgrade. Whereas this console, the Switch 2, by the looks of it, newer games, like maybe I'd say maybe a step from maybe the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance, I'd say. Like in terms of like,
Yeah, I feel like it's something like that. Or maybe like the DS to the DS Lite, something like that.
no, I think the DS to DS Lite might be a bit of a like. That's another thing. Obviously, we've got Mario Kart. Well, a new Mario Kart confirmation. I'm not going to say Mario Kart 9 because like who knows what it's. They always have a weird thing with naming their Mario Karts. Like they got up to a certain point, it's like, yeah, this is 7, and you're like, oh, there's 7 of these, and then they went 8, and then like they could go back to the regular like Mario Kart something. Like Double Dash was a
Well, I think it depends on what the gimmick is for the game.
yeah.
That will probably dictate it because, like, Double Dash, like you were just saying,
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that it's Double Dash, right? Because 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
With 8, I mean, what could you have called that if it's not 8?
Yeah. It literally, the only way you could probably do it is, oh, just keep calling it Mario Kart for 3DS or Mario Kart for Wii U. That then arguably moving from the Wii U to the the Switch, it was a deluxe version. Yeah, like imagine if it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ironically, though, if they'd done that like they did for Smash,
Mm-hmm.
everyone would have just called it like Mario Kart 8 anyway, because
Yeah.
we will call it Smash 4. Unless you really want to specify what console you were playing it on,
Yeah.
no one really says, oh yeah, you know, Smash Bros 3DS or Smash Bros Wii U. You just say Smash 4.
You say Smash 4, yeah. And especially since they really went heavily into the Smash Bros 4 3DS or Smash Bros 4 Wii U. It just all worked really well, like in that. So Smash 4 just worked. But like it makes you wonder, like, is there gonna be, you know, like you said about the new 3DS and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Because obviously there were exclusive games for that wouldn't run on the regular 3DS. Is it going to be like that where it's like exclusive games for the Switch too? Like exclusive, because they got it, right? I feel like they have to, like, to make it a justifiable upgrade.
I think they probably will, only
Yeah.
because there's probably going to be some games they'll release from previous generations
Mm-hmm.
that couldn't run on the Switch, even with like the whatever they were doing with the cloud processing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there will be some games that they've somehow managed to get to work to run natively from a cartridge or whatever on the Switch 2 that obviously won't be able to run on the Switch because the original hardware is just not strong enough.
Yeah.
But that's also another point I want to bring up
Mm-hmm.
is, so they've shown us, you know, on the 16th when this trailer dropped,
Mm-hmm.
first look trailer they're calling it, they've shown us like it's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be more powerful because like mobile chips have been evolving like crazy recently in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But how much stronger is this thing going to be is my question. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, this is the big thing for me as well. It's the specs that I'm like interested in more than anything. Because to justify this as a big deal, like, oh, the Switch 2, I feel like you have to be like, okay, there's got to be a justifiable upgrade for this. Like, what is that upgrade? Like,
yeah, this cannot be 1080p docked.
no.
It cannot. If this is 1080p docked, I don't want it.
Yeah.
With the newer hardware and stuff, this better at least be 1440.
Yeah.
I'm not saying native 4K,
Yeah.
but like docked, this better be at least close to 4K.
I don't want this to be here's the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro, which is like, oh, you pay like, what was it, ridiculous amount more for the most minimal upgrades. I'd want something that like is actually worth buying, basically.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, here's the OLED model, which like is cool. Oh yeah, you got a better screen, it's an updated thing. Like I think that's like what you were saying earlier about the DS to the DS Lite. I think the Switch to the Switch OLED is probably that kind of comparison. I think it is also quite interesting with it, and I think they have to do the games justice with it. I think this is more of a 3DS to new 3DS kind of thing where like you'll have your exclusive games on there that you can only play on your new 3DS, but like the other ones will still work otherwise, like because they've confirmed that pretty much all Switch games are working on it apart from like a few outliers, and I think that's probably the Labo ones, I reckon.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything that's like heavily relied on the old hardware
Yeah.
and the ergonomics of the old hardware, that makes sense.
I don't think they're going to be going through and be like, oh, you can't play Smash Ultimate on this because it just doesn't work.
Oh shit! I just thought about it. It's probably Ring Fit as well.
I was thinking that as well, yeah, because it's
Because you slide the Joy-Cons into the ring,
into the thing, yeah.
but the new Joy-Cons are magnetic.
Yeah, and bigger, so it just wouldn't work. Yeah, so Ring Fit and Labo, I think two of the big Nintendo's biggest ones. I think for that anyway.
I mean, those make sense because those are
Yeah.
things built specifically around the specifics of the old Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly get in there and say, with the comment about 1440p 4K resolution, it's not that I care about actual graphics, like, oh, I want a game to look super realistic and amazing. I'm just saying in general, I understand that Nintendo hardware is always underpowered in comparison to the competitors.
Yeah.
However, with the technology out there right now,
Yeah.
1080p would be doing the Switch 2 and consumers an injustice.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it feels like at this point you're just putting out the same thing again, and there's like for me, I think what I want from this is games that are running better.
Yeah.
I want games that like for example stuff like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet where like it's a massive world.
Frame rate issues were awful.
Yeah, I think stuff like that. I think I want a hardware which is gonna run that shit without any frame rate issues. That's the game. Like Scarlet and Violet, those games are there. Like I can't see them being improved or upscaled or anything like that.
Yeah.
However, with like the new Legends game, for example, which I think will be optimized for Switch 2,
Or you'd hope so.
I feel like it's gonna be because there's a reason why they said was it New Legends game and Metroid 4 are coming out in 2025. I believe not only, well, I'm in two minds whether Mario Kart 9 will be a launch title or not. It'd be very fucking good of Nintendo to do that as a launch title. That's a great way to start that.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If it's not, then why show it?
Yeah.
Don't put it in the first look trailer if it's not going to be.
They did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's one thing. They put it in the first look trailer. Arguably, you had Breath of the Wild there as well, which was their big. Like Breath of the Wild was a bigger selling point than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at the time because that is the new Zelda game which they've been hyping up for years at that point. Arguably, they wouldn't want to hype up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because arguably you'd want to hype up that Zelda game. Bear in mind, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out in May 2017, so about 2-3 months after the Switch had launched. So I feel like with this, the Mario Kart 9 game more than likely will be a launch title. I feel like it should be.
That's what I reckon. I think it's going to be a bundle, personally.
Yeah, it should be.
I think there's going to be like your standard console, and then there's going to be
The Mario Kart.
launch title bundles.
Yeah.
And if it's Mario Kart, then it will be a Mario Kart bundle.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
I was talking to some other people about their thoughts on what is going on right now. And for example, when it dropped, friend of the channel, Sam Wilder, said, oh, I missed the colorful Joy-Cons. I brought that point up to some other friends. They said that right now, this is what the Switch 2 looks like, right? That's all they've shown us.
Yeah.
They reckon that there'll be bundles. The bundles will have colorful Joy-Cons.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's like, that's the one thing about Joy-Cons as well. They're heavily customizable. Like, there's a reason why they have the Legend of Zelda ones, or they have the Pokemon ones, or they have this. Like, it's the same way that we'll have that. Like, the original Switch launched with 2 color variations, the red and blue one and the grey ones.
Yeah.
I kind of went with the grey ones because I was just like, oh, that's the color that Nintendo are advertising at the time. I'll get that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they just switched over to doing the fucking red and blue ones, and then the grey ones just got pushed aside.
Originally, I also wanted a grey one,
Yeah.
but I ended up getting what they called neon, the red and blue.
Oh, yeah.
But when my friend said it, I was like, to be honest, I never thought that there wouldn't be colorful Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
Because like that's been a big part of like Switch branding as well. Get colored Joy-Cons to like match your, your feels or whatever. You're like your
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Yeah, like, because there's like all those like pastel ones now. There's like specific like IP ones. Like, there's like all sorts. Like, there's like kind of Splatoonish kind of one, but isn't Splatoon at the same time, because the console is like the Splatoon 3 one I'm talking about. I mean, arguably, I think there was a Splatoon 2.
I think there was a Splatoon 2 one as well.
It was like that neon green and the pink, which was matching Splatoon 2's color scheme.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't Splatoon Joy-Cons, it matched that color scheme. And then as soon as Splatoon 3 came out, it was like, oh, here's this
It was the like dark blue and yellow one.
yellow, which again is, I think, they're not Splatoon Joy-Cons, but they go with the game because that's how they're advertising it. And like you said, there'll be bundles as well. They'll like further down the line when there's another massive game, like maybe the next big Mario game or Zelda game, there will be Mario Joy-Cons, there'll be Zelda Joy-Cons with it, and there'll be the bundle like we have now. Like there'll be a dock that's like a
That's the speculation. I mean, it's been a while since we had a new 3D Mario as well.
Mm-hmm.
Basically since Odyssey.
Yeah.
The speculation is also that we could possibly be getting a new 3D Mario game.
I feel like we're overdue one. I think it probably will drop. Like maybe not this year or next year. I think it will be one soon though. I can't see him not doing it.
Yeah. The speculation is it was like, yeah, there should be one coming, but maybe it might be something new. It might not be like Odyssey 2, for example, but I'm also kind of like, I could go for Odyssey 2 though. Full speculation, right?
Yeah.
Odyssey is amazing. Probably my favorite 3D Mario game. A second one, if it has the same game feel and it feels similar but like better,
Yeah.
I'm totally down.
Yeah. I feel like it would be an Odyssey 2, or part of me also feels like, to play on that nostalgia that people have for the game, arguably the thing that started off the 3D World games, like a Mario 64 remake, I think could be an option as well, like a full HD, like upgraded graphics. It's a tough one because arguably you have Mario 64 on the Switch already as part of Nintendo's online.
Yeah, 3D All Stars pack.
You have access to 64. A lot of people have that, but with upgraded stuff, if Mario 64, maybe including the 64 DS things, which kind of is a weird pros and cons kind of thing, because it had some good things, but it was also like, why unnecessary changes, you know what I mean?
I see. I would prefer it if they did it like Odyssey though. Like,
yeah,
by this point, spoilers if you haven't finished the game, but the Easter egg is that after you finish the game, there is a whole like Mario 64 area.
Yeah.
So like you get to explore it a little bit and you get your nostalgia like that.
Yeah.
By this point in time, I would actually prefer an Odyssey 2 or something new that did something like that instead of a new Mario game. Here is your remastered nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about the remastered nostalgia.
Arguably, I feel like it probably would piss people off a bit more. I feel like some people would be really hyped about it, but like, is it needed? I don't think it is, because everyone will go back to Mario 64 fans will always just go back to Mario 64. As a new audience, are you going to get Mario 64 for Switch 2 like for your kid? I don't know if your kid's gonna be interested as much. They might do. I don't know. It's tough to say. I feel there's a market for it, but I feel like people would be more hyped about an Odyssey 2 over a 64 remake if that were to be the case.
Okay. Yeah.
Part of me wonders if they're gonna upgrade game. Like, if this is a sizable upgrade, something that is worth your money, could they even like do, I don't want to keep going back to like 64 games or whatever, but like there's certain games that Nintendo have which like are very limited by hardware.
Yeah.
Would they upscale or do a definitive edition version which is more upscaled for the Switch 2?
See, I saw that as a question too, and the question people were asking were like, are they going to do like a PlayStation, like from the PS4 to PS5? A lot of games had the free upgrades.
Yes.
But it's Nintendo, and Nintendo don't do that. I think if Nintendo ever does something, but it's not going to be as simple as a
Nah.
digital, like you pay £5-10, it's now upgraded, it's better for the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Is Nintendo, you're buying a whole new cartridge at full price.
Yeah, I feel like if they're nice to you, like, because they do have those moments, you know what I mean? Like, if, like, what was it when you like, remember, this is way back, you know, the Smash 4 DLC?
Yeah.
Or like the even Ultimate DLC with Piranha Plant. Like, oh, if you buy the game before January, you get Piranha Plant for free. Or like if you have the Switch, if you have the Wii U and 3DS versions of Smash 4, you get Mewtwo on both. I don't know what the fucking deal was at that point. You just got Mewtwo early. I think it is. Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the nicest they ever get to you.
Yeah.
They don't do, oh, we've got this, so here's...
What if, right, hypothetically, they've still got Nintendo Online service as well?
They better. That's another point we need to touch on, but anyway.
This is another thing. Considering the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe booster pack was included in that online service,
Yeah.
do you think there could be a world where, like, you have your Breath of the Wild, for example, and if you have the Nintendo Online thing, you get the upgraded version of Breath of the Wild for free? If you don't have the online thing, you have to pay full price for it.
Maybe.
That's a great way to get people's money constantly. And if you like, people want the online service regardless right now to play just games. And the expansion, I'm solely talking about the expansion one as well. I'm not talking about the regular online. I'm talking about the expansion where you have to pay basically £50 a year to have this.
Yeah.
So including those upgrades within that expansion, I think could be I think it's a decision that a lot of people get behind, considering, yeah, you've got Nintendo 64 games, you've got Game Boy Advance games, and you got this booster pack and some Animal Crossing stuff. How do they make this thing even more sellable and marketable to people? That's how you do it, I reckon.
If they've thought about it, that would be the way I want them to do it.
Yeah.
Assuming, and this is now ties in what I wanted to talk about when you brought it up, assuming that they don't pull a dickhead move and go, that was Nintendo Switch Online. This is Switch 2.
Nah.
Now you need a Switch 2 online subscription instead of that one. So if it transfers, which it better,
I think it will. It can't not. Like they've got this ecosystem. They can't.
It has to, but you have to remember who we're talking about here. It's Nintendo, and what you think is logical and common sense, they don't always do that, especially when it comes to thinking about online things, right?
Yeah, that's true.
They don't think about it properly, or somebody has some stupid idea and thinks it's quirky and it's great, and it's not.
Yeah.
If it transfers, which again, it better transfer.
It makes no sense to yeah, go on.
Then it would make sense, because what else can you offer on the Switch 2 from launch besides online play for a new Mario Kart, right? Upgrades from your old games to upscale it, even though it should just do that natively anyway.
Yeah, they'll make it a money thing. It's like you said, it's Nintendo, yeah.
Yeah, let's say they have some games from the library, even the Switch library, that they're like, okay, here's the Switch 2 version, higher resolution, better frame rates, whatever. You needed a Switch Online subscription, Nintendo Online thing to unlock that. Fine, that's fine, because we already pay for it.
Yeah.
If it transfers and it does that, that's fine. However, if they come out and say, you got to pay for that, I'm not paying for that.
Or like a whole new, like, kind of...
No, I'm not even talking about a whole new Switch 2 subscription. I'm just saying, in general, if they say, you want to play your, I don't know, Pokemon Legends Arceus,
yeah.
your Breath of the Wild, your Tears of the Kingdoms, Mario Kart 8, Odyssey, whatever. You want to play these titles with higher resolutions, better frame rates, you gotta pay a £5-10 upgrade. I'm not paying it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
That's fair, yeah. I can understand that. It doesn't make sense to. Like, at that point. I think that's why it, like, arguably you're getting the upgrade, but you're working fine with that on normal Switch. Why would you pay the £10 upgrade to just get better visuals where you can... The Switch is absolutely perfectly fine, unless it has to be worth it. This is one thing. If I am gonna upgrade,
yeah,
it has to really fucking be worth it. It's like,
even if those games didn't run perfectly on the original Switch, we dealt with it anyway because we had to.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's the difference? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to pay the money because I've already dealt with those issues.
I think they'd know that not everyone would buy it either. I think that's why if they were going to charge people for those upgrades, they like you said, it'd probably be £10-15 if they were going to charge people for them, because they know if they put that full price, no one's gonna fucking do it. Like even your hardcore Nintendo fan won't do it.
The only other thing is though, is if they make you pay for it, there's going to be a lot of scorn, because I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, why are you charging me for this when that could have just been a patch?
Yeah.
You had all this time. You could have fixed it on the original hardware. You didn't. Now you're asking me for money to fix it on the new hardware? Like, no. There's just like a lot of reasons to, if they were to be like, oh yeah, give us 15 quid, you get a better version of this thing. I think there's too many reasons for consumers to just be like, no.
Because we're seeing like on PlayStation right now that like if you had like, for example, Dragon Ball Fighters, for example.
Yeah.
You have the PS4 version, you get the PS5 one for a free upgrade. Like that's what the thing is. Like that's what it should be.
For the example of PlayStation with Horizon, I think it was Forbidden West, the sequel, they actually were like, oh, we're not doing free anymore. No more free upgrades. You got to pay for that.
Just nuts, yeah.
That was like a limited time thing. And then everybody revolted and they had to walk that back. And now we've got free upgrades for it.
Yeah.
It was one of the Horizons. I can't remember if it was the remaster or the first one or the sequel. But one of them, for sure, I remember they were like, no free upgrades. You got to pay. And everyone was like, no, everything else was free. Why not this one?
It's one of those where the thing is, PlayStation walk that back. Sony would walk that back. Nintendo won't.
No, they won't.
Like if Nintendo makes it, they stick by their decision. They do not walk anything back. Like once they've made something, they do not change their minds. That's when they're stubborn as fuck. With Nintendo as well, because all of it is so freaking exclusive to that console, they've got you by the balls with it, and they know that. It's like times where it's like the logic and reason ain't there, but like they also know for a fact, like you're a Nintendo fanboy if you're getting these games, like you will pay it or you just don't get it. They all stick by that shit.
See, but like that's also why I'm like, that's why it sucks. Like, at some point, they need to start fucking getting out of their ass about that. Because at some point, it becomes anti-consumer.
Yeah.
Like, for example, where personally, I can see a future. I'm not saying they're going to, but I can see a future where they go, there's 2 separate Switch onlines.
Yeah.
That is a dickhead move.
I don't think they would do that, no.
That's where you say they won't do that, and they shouldn't, but you have to admit you can also see a future where they do that.
It's not out of the realm of possibility, that's for sure.
And like you said, because they don't walk anything back, then what are we going to do?
I tell you what they'd do with it is that they would see the discourse going on, and like for example, the expansion pass thing. A lot of people are like, what, this is pointless. I'm paying extra just for Nintendo 64 games. That's insane. And then slowly and surely, they did make it a bit more like enticing with the Mario Kart thing, or like I know I think you said this to me before that if the Mario Kart courses weren't included in it, you wouldn't have got the Mario Kart 8 DLC, would you? No, that's it. And it's one of those ones where what they'd do, they'd arguably try and make it more enticing. But you know what Nintendo would like with that, though? They take a while to do that shit. I think that is the worst case scenario, what we're saying here about 2 Switch Onlines, because it makes no sense to consider they've built this ecosystem already. They've got all of this going on. To create another online would be silly, especially with a Switch 2, they're slowly going to phase out the original Switch with that as well. Like, again, same ecosystem. This is a Switch 2 which arguably is backwards compatible with the regular Switch.
Yeah.
For example, eShop is going to stay the same. Or it might get an upgrade for the Switch 2 where it's like, oh, you got this different UI or something like that. You'll get that shit. That'll be the same.
Yeah.
If anything, I reckon they'll deliver on stuff like, on the Switch, you have the theme section. And in the theme section, this was a day one thing. It's like, oh, you can choose it to be black or white. Day one, Pepe was like, the themes is going to be like the 3DS where you can just change all the background and stuff like that. And they did nothing with it. It's like, you had this whole section called themes, but there were no themes. You literally just got a different fucking background. That's all it was. And I feel like with the Switch 2, they have the opportunity to be like, hey, let's big this shit up. Let's go add themes which are more like, hey, you can actually put a background on and stuff like that. PlayStation have got that kind of thing where they got rid of themes, arguably, because you go on your icon, it just shows a picture up of the game that you're about to play, basically, and that takes up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So themes are gone on PlayStation, basically, maybe apart from the 30th anniversary, which is a limited time thing. But they'll do like small things which are like, would be cool on the Switch, but there'd be like, oh, they're going to bring them all at the same time on the Switch too, I think. And we'll get through to the hardware changes as well in a second, I feel, but yeah.
To your point of like the small things,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like doing the small things is so they can cut a corner,
Yeah.
so that you don't notice the big things that you did want that they didn't do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't want small things if it comes at the cost of the things that should have been done.
No, I think those are additional things, I'd say. Like, they're small things, but additional. What users want from a Switch 2, and what Nintendo want. Like, Nintendo's aim for this console is to get the people that already have a Switch.
Yeah, to buy.
What gets them over to the new one? It needs to be justified. So whether that is exclusive games, which I think it must be, it has to be worthwhile for you to be paying that much. So it has to be, like, maybe they'll get stuff like apps, for example. Like, it'd be silly because Netflix ran on the Wii U and the Wii, but it's just suddenly not on the Switch. Imagine if they made Netflix Switch 2 exclusive or something like that. It's not a selling point at all.
No, it isn't.
Nah.
But it might be as well, though, because you got to think about all the people who bought a Switch because of like pandemic and whatever.
Yeah.
Now they're super casuals that might not even use the Switch for anything. But if you suddenly is like, hey, there's a Netflix app, you got this thing for whatever reason you don't want to use a smart TV, which I don't understand.
But like, if you're traveling as well, it basically replaces the iPad. You know for a fact, like Netflix has that thing in it where, like, if you can download shows onto your phone, so if you're on the train, you know you got a poor signal, you can just like watch it there.
Yeah.
If Nintendo had that thing where, oh, you get Netflix and you can download your thing, and basically if people bring around their Switch 2s on the train or like on a plane or something, just watching their shows on that.
Yeah.
Arguably, what they want to compete with as well is tablets. That's another thing they'll want to compete with.
Well, I mean, it's not just tablets. Now you've also, well, like when Switch came out, it was almost uncontested.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it still had to fight iPads and stuff, but now we've got Steam Deck and all
Yeah.
of these handheld PC gaming
Yeah,
machines.
yeah.
It's a much more competitive market now.
I think they've got to really find what those competitors are. Like, part of me is like, they've got to do this, but I'm hoping they've already done it. Let's be honest. I don't want them to be thinking about this now. Like, they want to like find out what are people doing if they're handhelds that aren't Nintendos, and how can they incorporate that onto here. You could say, oh yeah, it's was it 4G compatible, which would be an insane thing. Let's go back to the PS Vita days. Play Mario Kart anywhere without Wi-Fi would be an interesting thing. I don't trust it at all because
Yeah, except you need to
Imagine that,
fucking
yeah.
you need to pay for a fucking SIM card or some shit. That's how all those things worked. I hated it.
yeah.
Okay, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's speculating because you know there's part of that trailer where there's the new straps that it like locked into.
Right, yes.
And that part of the trailer, the controllers skate across the surface, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's mouse support."
Yes.
Do you think that's actually a thing? Do you think? Do you really think that's a thing?
What? That's something that one of the leaks said as well, weren't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, we haven't touched on leaks because I don't know the full in-depth stuff of it either, so I don't know all the leaks that went down. So
Honestly, I didn't look into the leaks.
yeah, I didn't. But apparently, one of the leaks, which happened, well, obviously, all the leaks have kind of been correct. They leaked the model. Everything was like, oh yeah, we've seen the Switch 2 already. So a lot of it wasn't news stuff for people that had seen leaks. Now, the mouse thing, I think was part of one of the leaks. I don't know if that was a true leak because there's so many leaks out there. There's so many different ones. What ones are true, which ones aren't? We don't know at this point.
We'll never know until April 2nd when they actually give us the fucking shit.
Saying that though, it does heavily look like that's a mouse support thing. It really does. But I don't know what games is that working for on the Switch though. And I'm kind of curious at like how that even works.
Also, does that not look awkward as fuck though? Like,
It really does.
if that's how it actually works, you got to put it in the thing,
Yeah.
and now you have to hold it awkwardly like this is like vertical.
It's not a comfortable thing. Like the mouse is built the way it is because it fits the part. But the Joy-Cons, they're like about 2 inches thick at most. Yeah. Like
Yeah, the Joy-Cons like that won't be ergonomic enough, will they?
absolutely not.
I feel like you're gonna cause some sort of like, I've heard that if you had a mouse that was in that style, like a lot more vertical. I mean, you guys won't see it, but Pepe can see it now. I'm holding
Yeah.
my mouse. Like, if you had your mouse like that,
Yeah.
you had it like that, your hand like that, that's actually more ergonomic.
Yeah.
That's actually better for you, apparently. But for Switch 2, for example, I'm like, that looks weird.
Part of me is just like, that's a cool feature if it is, but what the fuck are we using it for? You're a Nintendo fan, like your Zeldas or your Mario fan. They're not gonna be like, oh, cool, I'm gonna bust out the mouse Joy-Con right now. Like,
Boom, headshot.
yeah,
Link's just got a headshot on that bokoblin.
yeah.
Woo! 360 no scope.
It'd be nuts. if it is what that is, if that is a genuine thing, I'm curious at how it's going to work and what it's going to work for.
I'm assuming it's because they're probably trying to get more of the other games that are out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably for when things like COD and I know Overwatch is on there and other like shooters and stuff. Like there are competitive shooters and things and other games that could probably use it for aiming. But let's face it, how many people are going to even remember that's a thing? For one, like here's the perfect example of a feature that the original Switch has that everyone forgets until I remind someone. It's got a touchscreen.
I hate the touchscreen so much. I hate that.
Fucking, it has a touchscreen, and like Pepe is someone who's more of a Nintendo fanboy than me, but will forget until I'm sat next to him, have to type something in, and then I'm touching the screen. He's like, "Oh yeah, oh fuck, that's a thing, innit?"
Yeah. It's mad. Like I forget it because it is just so. I just hate it. So I hate that touchscreen so much. I know it's like, oh, it's your tablet kind of thing. It gets used very, very rarely. Apart from typing in fucking, what was it, the Wi-Fi passcode.
Yeah.
What else am I using it for?
Wi-Fi passcode, my account password for buying something or something like that.
It's so unnatural because you'd have to also have to hold it in one palm of your hand and start typing on it with the other, or you have it on the desk and then start like doing.
No, because you put it on your lap and then you get your index fingers and you're like boop 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 boop.
None of that is comfortable, which is also like, I think the mouse system for this Switch 2, if it is a thing, is such a very specific situation you have to be in there. You'd have to be at a desk to be using it. You're not going, what are you going to do? Use on your fucking coffee table?
I can't wait for the Splatoon 4 pros who are using it on their lap.
You'd actually have to be at a desk to be doing that kind of stuff. Maybe they've got stuff like a lot more, like maybe, I don't know, like League of Legends kind of thing. Maybe they've got something like that coming on the Switch.
Maybe
they're integrating a lot of those games which do use that mouse support, and maybe those are coming over to the Switch. Because bear in mind, the Switch wasn't a market for any of those people before.
No.
We weren't even sure if it was going to be a success at the time when it first launched. Now it's a massive success. People like got Switches. Like you said, casual people have it, like casual gamers, like everyone kind of has this Switch. And it is a viable console, and it is viable in the market today. But are Nintendo going to be branching out to more of those less casual gamers, like the ones that are kind of playing your desktop games, like ones that you'd have on your PC?
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of maybe where to go next. Now that they've got the install base because of the previous Switch, like how do you...
But this is another thing as well.
The thing is, like, I hope they're not focusing on that, like trying to expand into markets that they don't already have yet, because you still do have to convince all these people that have a Switch and may have bought one recently, right? Or have multiple Switches in their household to try and buy another one. Like, that's probably going to be your hardest sell, is to convince someone that you need this new one instead of the old one.
Yeah, because basically the only upgrade I've seen from a base console to the next one isn't even a Nintendo one. It's the PlayStation 2. Bear in mind the SNES and the NES. People had their NESs, but why the fuck would they want to buy an SNES? At the time, that was one of the things like, wait, I've got this. This is back then. Like, they had their console.
Back then, it made more sense, though. There was the visual proper jump from like 8-bit to 16-bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, back then it was like a much bigger thing. And it was way easier to justify. But nowadays, it's like...
But then Game Boy to Game Boy Advance as well. Think about it. Game Boy fucking sold gangbusters, you know what I mean? Game Boy Advance comes out. I mean, even a Game Boy Color, that's even a tough sell.
Yeah.
At the time, it's like, oh, cool, it says upgraded.
But again, that was something that in itself had an easier time of convincing people, because it was like Game Boy didn't have color. Now you got Game Boy Color. Now you can play your NES games or whatever in color, right? And to your point of like Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, that was NES to SNES, because it's like 8-bit to 16-bit or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like the older consoles had an easier time differentiating what makes it better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, it's got a stronger chip.
That's the struggle I think people had between the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Think about it, the jump between PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 was massive. Like, that was a very noticeable upgrade. But the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, you could easily just get by on a PlayStation 4. You don't need a PlayStation 5.
No.
People have them, but arguably it's like, oh, it looks nice, but the PlayStation 4 was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with it.
I agree with you. That last generation was very tough
Yeah,
to really like upgrade, whether you're a PlayStation or Xbox. Like it was really just like,
this is why the Switch 2 has to be like a notable upgrade. Like even like the DS to the 3DS, like that was a notable upgrade. That was like plain as day. PSP to PSV, I know both of those consoles kind of bombed in the West. Well, no, the consoles didn't bomb. The fucking games did.
yeah. So Sony failed us in software.
Yeah. And now they're potentially bringing out more PlayStation portables, supposedly. Whatever that might be. And it's like, what?
Portal,
Yeah, there's
PlayStation Portal.
yeah, which still is just unjustifiable to me. I know there's upgrades for it, but come on, it's not a thing. Get a phone mount for your controller. That's all I'll say.
It's a very specific use case. That's all I'll say.
It's bad, but that's a whole other topic of discussion. But you're right. Like, there's a lot of work to be done to convince people that the Switch 2 is worth buying here. This is it. Like Mario Kart. I gotta keep saying this, even though I'm touching this earlier. But it all depends if those game cartridges are exclusive to Switch 2 or not. That's the thing, right? Because if they're not exclusive to Switch 2, say if you can play Mario Kart 9 on your Switch, it's just not as good visuals.
Yeah, you're not gonna swap.
Why the fuck would you switch?
You won't need to.
Yeah, you won't need to. It's like people are happy with their normal Switches. Like, this is why I think it has to be a 3DS to new 3DS thing, because and Mario Kart is a great way of doing it if it's a launch title.
Yeah.
Because people want to play the new Mario Kart, which means they have to upgrade.
Because we've been waiting for a new Mario Kart longer than we've been waiting for a lot of things.
That thing's been out for over 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a Wii U game. Let's be honest. It's a Wii U game with upgraded stuff on the Switch.
Anyone who's like, oh, but no, it's still Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, it's Mario.
Pepe and I have been playing that since Wii U.
They made minimal changes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because they added new bits doesn't mean it ain't Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, exactly that. And even their Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, even that is fucking 2017. That is an old game now. That is
yeah.
So I think they have to make the Switch 2 games exclusive. I think they have to make Switch 2 games just like, yeah, you just have to do that. And I think it will be like where that new 3DS kind of it didn't fail. It doesn't feel like it had the impact.
Yeah, but that's because the branding was stupid.
Yeah, the branding was. And like,
that was the worst part about it, is like the branding was stupid. It was the same sort of branding from the Wii to the Wii U. People didn't understand the difference, right?
Yeah.
And you can't just say 3DS to new 3DS, because your average consumer is going to go to the store and be like, I'm looking for a new 3DS. And then the person behind the counter is going to go, do you mean a brand new 3DS or the brand new 3DS?
Yeah, because then they brought out multiple new 3DS. One, there was a smaller one and a bigger one. And then the 2DS.
Yeah, exactly. Your like aunt or your uncle or your grandma or your granddad is going to be like, I don't know the difference. Give me one. Let me just buy one.
Yeah, that's it. Arguably, the games for the new 3DS, it was great that Xenoblade did run on it, but that is one of the few examples. I'm pretty sure Majora's Mask wasn't a new 3DS exclusive.
I don't know, but all I know is this needs to do a lot, because it is fighting quite a bit, and it's actually also fighting itself, because the Switch was something crazy where people own multiple of these things.
Yes.
Even the two of us have multiple Switches.
I had 3 at one point.
I've got 2 of them. I've got one in my room and I've got one downstairs. We are different in that sense, because as Nintendo fans, despite everything we said, probably still going to put the money down.
Oh, this is the thing. They have you by the balls with this. Like if you want to get your thing, you buy into their system, and they know it, bro. They know it.
Yeah, but even for me though, it really is like, it's becoming a harder sell. Mm-hmm. Besides, I know the fact that I'm going to need the new console to play some of the newer games. It's still a hard sell to be like, yeah, but like, you know, the one I have is fine.
Yeah.
It's all right. Yeah, it's very weak, and I'm not gonna lie, nowadays I prefer my other machine that I just got that's more powerful than that one, at least.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, what are the exclusives on it? and how powerful is this thing. The powerful thing as well is the thing that factors into it the most for me.
It's all the second part, really.
Yeah.
It's Nintendo. Exclusives are like you're not going to ever have to worry about that.
We get given. Yeah.
You're correct. It's all about the actual upgrades from the first Switch to this new one.
It is all about that. And for me, it's also a price thing, right?
Yes.
Like, say if it's launched and it's £400.
Oh, that's a bit.
Bear in mind, the original Switch, when it launched, it was 300, maybe like 289 if you're lucky and got a good deal on it. And they're still going for that price. The Switch OLED still goes to that price.
Yeah.
But if it's £400 and it has very minimal upgrades, I am going to be pissed. This is the one thing. I need this thing to be powerful. And if I'm going to be putting down £300, that's in the best case scenario, by the way. I don't think it'll be cheaper than 300. And if it is really good specs, it could be in the 400 range.
Yeah.
But if the upgrades are minimal, I've always been a day one Nintendo buyer. No matter what the console, I've always been a day one.
Yeah, you have.
But I will be fuming if they're going to charge me out the arse for something which has barely any upgrades for it. And this has to be justified as well. The upgrades, obviously there will be upgrades. I'm sure there will. We've already seen it with the hardware.
Yeah, but we want notable upgrades.
I don't want your mouse support. That's fine if it is. I'm not gonna fucking use mouse support. And if all of what they showed in that trailer in terms of hardware bits, if that is all it is, and there's no maybe 4K support, I don't know, whatever. I'm not completely into the whole resolution thing. I know you know very well,
yeah.
But I need this to be upgraded to an amount which is oh, that looks beautiful.
Yeah.
This is blowing the original Switch out the water. That's gonna get me putting £400 on launch day. Anything that's oh, here's this thing, now you can do this small thing, and I'm oh, okay.
That's the thing is I agree with you. It probably will be closer to 400 now.
Yeah, I think if it's the good upper, yeah.
Regardless of specs, I think that's just how it's gonna go. What with inflation and all that kind of crap, there's just no way.
Yeah.
However, I will say this: if all it is it's slightly bigger, there's better battery, slightly nicer screen, but it's still 1080p in docked, 720 in handheld, and all it is mouse support, bigger hard drive,
yeah,
and then it's better frame rates, I'm not putting my 400 down. I'm just going to skip it.
I can understand that completely, yeah. It just doesn't seem worth it at that point. The only thing that would be getting you... Again, bear in mind, this has one cartridge slot on the console as well. You've seen the little top bit there.
Yep.
It's very cool that they've moved the charging port to the top as well. That's very good.
Well, there's two of them.
Yeah, it's one on the top and bottom, yeah. Maybe there could be actual external hard drive support. I don't want a fucking hard drive sticking out of my fucking Switch at the end of the day. But
no, I always play mine docked anyway, so
yeah,
as long as plug it into the dock, I guess.
But imagine traveling with that shit and be, oh yeah, let me whip out my Switch. There's a fucking dongle hanging out the fucking top of it.
Just a massive fucking portable hard drive.
It's basically just gonna look fucking ugly, man. It's gonna be cartridge based. We know it's backwards compatible.
It has to be cartridge based because of backwards compatible.
This is why I'm so umming and ahhing about this one. This is why I'm so hung up on this fucking are the games gonna be exclusive to Switch? And I feel like they have to with it. I think
the new ones will for a while.
Yeah.
I can't say that it will always be that way.
Yeah.
But at least until I think they hit the numbers that they want to. I think maybe for the first year or so, it probably will just be Switch 2. Then again, saying that, Breath of the Wild did come out on Wii U.
It did.
But that's a little more justifiable because no one had a Wii U.
They just did that out of obligation.
Yeah, it was for obligation and they didn't care. But part of me doubts that it will be exclusive. I get the feeling they're still going to want to cover their bases and it will still be oh, there's a Switch version.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. A lot of the newer games will probably have to be Switch 2 exclusive just to force people to have to upgrade, the ones who really care.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm I don't think they will though.
Do you think it could be... Isn't it Xbox that did the discs and that work across the older console and the newer one? Is that right? The Series X and Xbox One?
I don't know. That I think it's the same, but that's also where I stopped owning an Xbox.
Yeah.
I had an Xbox One. I haven't got a Series.
Part of me thinks that there's one disc across both things. So if you had the Xbox Series X disc, you also had the Xbox One disc. Like, it works across both.
I mean, ultimately, a disc is a disc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Like, so I'm kind of just like, would it all just be, oh, you can get Mario Kart 9? It works across the Switch and the Switch 2, but the Switch 2 will have visible upgrades.
I imagine it would just be like that.
Yeah.
Like, I heard Breath of the Wild on Wii U, like, was okay, but it was, like, riddled with frame rate issues.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I'd imagine it's probably something similar. If it was Mario Kart 9 launches on Switch 2, but you can also get it on Switch, that on the Switch, it would just run like ass.
Yeah. So it kind of like, hey, you have the option to buy it, but it's gonna just you're gonna be playing and you're like, I should have got the Switch 2 version because it's like,
Yeah, basically, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, as much as I agree with you that it's a way to get everyone to move over, at the same time, I feel like they're just going to release both versions of the game, and they're like, the ones of you who put the money down will get the better version,
yeah.
and the ones who don't want to put the money down, well, now you got one that runs.
Do you see there being an option where the Switch and Switch 2 game is on one cartridge?
Maybe, I don't know. It depends though, because like it depends on how much more powerful the Switch 2 is.
Yeah.
The Switch 2 cartridges may need to have more memory in it. Like,
I feel like they'd need to, yeah.
it may need to be a new cartridge because it probably has to hold more data on it. I also can't imagine that they'll be exactly the same as the Switch ones. It might look incredibly similar, but yeah, I don't know. Like, they might be a bit bigger. They might be a bit thicker. I don't know.
It's so true, yeah, because even like the 3DS to the DS, like obviously they had that like random little ridge thing.
Little
didn't
nubbin,
they?
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they had the fucking little nub, so
yeah, God knows, maybe that's maybe they'll add a little nub to it.
I don't know. Like, again, with Switch 2, it might be that like the cartridge is a little taller, it's a little thicker, or maybe it's a little wider.
Yeah, something to see, yeah.
However they managed to get the production of the cartridge, I have no idea.
That's so true, yeah. It's so up in the air with that kind of thing, you're right.
It probably won't be wider because
Nah, because it looks like it's roughly the same.
if it's backwards compatible, then it's, you know, that means at a base it needs to be a specific width.
Yeah.
Knowing Nintendo, I feel like they would just go like, it's a taller cartridge if they had to do something different.
There could be just something noticeably different with it. There'll be something there. What else? Is there anything else that we haven't touched on? I feel like we touched on quite a bit of it. I mean, the Joy-Cons do look nice with the whole snapping in thing as well, though.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's just go over Joy-Cons real quick then.
Yeah.
People have been complaining. They're like, oh, that looks like it's well easy to break.
No.
Only if you're really dumb with it.
Yeah.
You think they're going to release something that you could just snap easily like that?
Yeah.
Come on.
Like, I don't understand, like, where that comes from, because like my one thing, but when I heard it was like, oh, magnetic Joy-Cons in, I was like, wait, how the fuck do you even play that though? Because surely it just fall apart in your hands. But like, there's a little switch thing at the back we have to press in to release it.
Yeah. You got to remember, Nintendo, out of most of the games consoles and games companies, have been doing handhelds for a long time, specifically marketed at kids, right?
Yeah.
Their engineers probably have thought about these things. And you don't bring a thing to market without vigorously testing if someone could fucking easily snap the thing off like a moron.
I think that's more down to the user if you're fucking snapping your Joy-Cons off like that. I feel like
that's what I'm saying. Like, everyone who said that to me, I'm kind of like, you will probably have to work real hard you're gonna want to break it.
Yeah.
To just go snap. Oh
Yeah.
shit, I just broke my 400-pound machine.
Yeah, it means it's like cheap as fuck hardware as well, which means it's like that.
Yeah.
That's more of a that's more of a glaring issue if that's the case.
Yeah, like, I can see why people would think that, because there's just this thing that sticks out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I never broke my original Switch Joy-Cons, which also you could say, you could probably snap that real easy.
Yeah, exactly.
I never did that. Fucking, so why do you think this would happen?
Yeah.
The other thing about Joy-Cons I want to ask you about is people were speculating about this new button.
Right.
This new button on the right Joy-Con underneath the home button. There's like another little square.
Okay, yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, what's that about? I'm like, I don't fucking know.
I never actually noticed it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just another button. and everyone's like, "Oh, what is that about?" Like, oh, there's speculations about what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look into any of them. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they were just like, you know what? It's another share button.
Why would it, no? Oh yeah, the thing that everyone uses. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I do not use any of those buttons anyway. Like the share button, the capture button. Like, why are they even there? Like,
Yeah, I don't use it, but like maybe this new one is, I don't know, maybe it's a programmable one, you know, it's a macro key.
yeah, like it's kind of like, you know, like on the iPhones as well. You have you can map it to certain things. Like,
Yeah,
it's a button which like is just an easy switch to another game or something like that. It's like,
maybe it's a macro key. I don't fucking know.
yeah, it'd be quite cool if it is a programmable thing where it's, oh yeah, you can design what the button's used for. That'd be quite cool. But again, I don't think it's a massive selling point. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I gotta get a Switch 2 because I could map a button. I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking the only thing I would use it for is probably like a quick recalibrate, maybe.
yeah, or something like that. Like it's
Oh, actually, there was other. I just realized as well because it looked like they tried to fix the whole Joy-Con drift issue as well.
the Joy-Con drift. This is the thing as well because there's that bit in there.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing that people are going to be looking for most of it. Is they're going to be drift because that was the major thing with those Joy-Cons.
that was the biggest problem.
I think Nintendo also like because it's costing them money to fix these things as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be with like that.
Well, I mean, it cost them a lot because like you could send it in for free repair. You didn't even pay for it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing they're gonna address first and foremost with those Joy-Cons.
Yeah, and you can see because like the little colored ring seems to go up above just, and there's like there's not much of a gap there anymore. It's like, oh, I see what you did there.
Part of me is kind of gutted that they don't have an actual D-pad on it. I'm kind of like, you know, like because they've got the buttons, isn't they?
I mean, the normal, yeah. I mean, the normal one doesn't. I mean, the first one, sorry, not normal one, but like,
I think that's why I'm a little bit because you remember like there's actual certain controllers out there which you can have the D-pad on.
yeah, but it's because it's detachable, and then
Yeah.
because you can turn them into controllers themselves. If one
Yeah.
had a D-pad, but one had the normal buttons, like.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, kind of wish they would have switched the design so that both the joysticks were at the top.
Oh yeah, kind of yeah.
Because, okay, if you take off the right Joy-Con and you flip it round to turn it into a controller, yes, it might be a bit strange that
Yeah.
your joystick is on the right side and now your buttons are on the left side or
Right,
closer
yeah.
to the middle, right? So it's kind of reverse of the other controller.
Yeah.
But the way that Joy-Cons are right now, when you're the unfortunate person who has to use the right Joy-Con as a controller, your left thumb has to be like in the middle of the Joy-Con because that's where the joystick is. and then you press in the buttons.
Yeah, I kind of forget that that's an actual thing. I'm one of those people that like very rarely uses their Joy-Cons out. You know, like the just individually as a controller.
Yeah.
So when I do come down to it, it's fucking well. Luckily as well, they're bigger, so that'd be alright. Like,
Well, that kind of makes it worse as well, though. If you're the person who has to use the right Joy-Con because now it's bigger, so now your thumb has to go even further into the middle.
yeah, it's something like for me is like very much like it's a minor issue. You know what I mean? It's one that
Even for me, it's a very minor issue.
yeah.
However, I have been in those situations, and as the owner of the Switch, I always give the other person the good controller, the one that isn't,
okay, yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
like,
fair,
I want them to have a good time, a good experience. So I give them the left Joy-Con to use as a controller, and then I use the right one because I'm like, oh, this one's a pain. Fucking hate this.
Oh yeah, God, I forgot about that. I also like it's one of those things as well, like going back to the strap things, because that's another thing. Like I'd never used the straps on the Joy-Cons,
Oh, I always use them.
so I'd never used them before. Like, because the thing is, I'd always just throw them in a random box somewhere and forget they exist. So if I'm ever bringing my Switch down, everyone's oh, let's play a game or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so we have to use the Joy-Cons. I'm like, oh, I didn't bring the straps because I forgot them and I don't bring them anywhere.
I always use them only because I didn't want to run the risk where the Joy-Cons were much smaller because people were flinging Wiimotes around and breaking them.
Yeah.
But a Wiimote only costs you like 30 quid.
Ooh, yeah.
A Joy-Con costs you 60 quid. And I was like, I'm not having someone fling my Joy-Con across the room, break it, and now I have to fork out 60 quid.
It makes it absolutely unusable as well. That's one thing. Once the Joy-Con is broken, the whole Switch is just basically fucked. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I used them all the time if I took them off, because I was like, I am not paying for more Joy-Cons.
yeah. Luckily, I don't think I've ever like had to play a game which actually uses the motion controls that much.
No, but you never know. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Better safe than sorry, innit? Like I was just always cautious.
The only time I've ever really used it is Super Mario Party. That was one of them.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart, I guess, when I was just like, oh, okay, cool, let's do this and play Mario Kart. That's the only time I've really done it. Maybe 51 worldwide games. So very minimal games. I think 3 games at most, I can probably say. Let's put it this way. I'm not playing Smash on a fucking Joy-Con. One single Joy-Con. Imagine that.
No, that's the rest of us that go around.
Yeah.
Pepe has the Pro Controller. The rest of us have to use the Joy-Con. It's like plebs.
Yeah. Fucking scrubs. They also still have the grip as well, which is cool to see. The grip's still there.
Yeah.
So is that I never used that either. That was another thing.
I used to use it all the time before I got a Pro Controller.
That's what it was. That's the only time I used it. And I got a Pro Controller in end of 2017 because that's when the Xenoblade one came out.
I got mine in 2019, so
Yeah.
2 years of using that.
Wait, so, oh my god, jeez. Like it feels weird going back to it if I ever used one. Like it just doesn't feel.
I even bought because you remember for the longest, like Pro Controller was so expensive.
Yeah.
And I remember telling you like, oh yeah, I just got the rechargeable like Joy-Con dock one because like
Oh yeah.
it was cheap. Like I bought that for like 20 quid instead of spending an extra £40 for a Pro Controller, and then I ended up buying a Pro Controller anyway.
It just the whole thing, it feels way too square for me. Like that grip thing, it just feels weird. Like
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. I'm hoping this is more ergonomic
yeah,
because the Joy-Cons were a little too small.
this feels a bit more like
And the Switch overall is just a touch, like, because I still have original Switches, so it's like just a touch too small.
yeah.
And it feels even smaller now that I've been playing on Steam Deck, because Steam Deck's heckin' chonker.
It is, isn't it? Like once you play the Steam Deck and go back to handheld Switch, you're like, Jesus Christ, this feels tiny.
You know what's really funny? Not only do you go, oh, it's tiny, you're like, man, this thing weighs like nothing.
In it, yeah, as well. You can just throw that shit across the room.
Yeah, exactly.
You forget how, like, I mean, considering how big our phones are these days, it's barely big. I mean, my phone is pretty much the same size as a Switch Lite. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That's another weird thing with it. Like, so I'm glad like the size upgrade's gonna be a thing. Because the one they showed in the promo as well, like the comparison for the Switch, that's just an original Switch, and that's not an OLED Switch either. So
Yeah.
I guess it makes more of an impact if you compare it to the Switch compared to Switch OLED.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
because if it was a Switch OLED, I think the only thing that would grow is the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
I think the screen is probably like even tiny margins of like bigger, only tiny bit though.
Yeah.
Whereas from the original Switch, it was like, it looked like it grew a fair amount.
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
Otherwise, like from an OLED, it's like a little boop, the tiniest movement, and you'd be like, what?
Yeah. I think that's it as well, selling that OLED alongside the Switch too. Like the screen would be like basically, there's barely any difference there.
Yeah, like what? It's got to be like millimeters of difference.
Yeah, it'd be nothing. It'd be absolutely nothing there. I think it makes sense why they've marketed like that, even though it's the OLED's better. Is there anything else we haven't touched on at all? Is there anything else that I feel we've covered most things?
I think we covered most of what can be covered right now, to be honest.
Yeah, we're waiting for April now.
Yeah, that's it. The only thing we didn't cover was how fucking annoying this is, that all we got was a first look trailer.
Yeah.
And let's face it, it's only because fucking like shit was happening. This was like a reactionary thing, not because they planned to do it.
100%. Yeah, like they could have released this at any point, like last year. They could have done that. And
they could have released it. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a small chunk of what was supposed to be on April 2nd.
Yeah.
I could see that April 2nd might have been like the actual date they wanted to do everything, right?
I think so, yeah.
But because of like CES and stuff, and there was that case for it, and everyone's been like talking about all these accessories they're making for the Switch 2 that they basically were like, fuck, we need to We just need to put something out.
People were 3D printing the Switch 2. And it's like, oh, technically I already have it. And it's like, yeah, because you've basically gone for the specs that have been leaked. It's nuts, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's not because they wanted to put out this teaser.
nah.
This is a reactionary, like, we just need to just put something out so people can calm down a bit.
One other thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is the speculation that we're going to have 24 racers in a Mario Kart. So, like, instead of having the 12 people, it's now double.
Yeah, I have seen that.
I guess, like, it could be quite cool. And it also depends on how they want to expand the Mario Kart game as well. Like, because it could be, like, an open world kind of Mario Kart map. Where, you like Forza,
Yeah.
where you drive to your destination and stuff like that. That could be an interesting kind of thing. I don't know if it's necessary for Mario Kart specifically, but 24 would be chaos, but it's also, depending on how big the maps are, it could be worth it. Like,
I mean, Crash Team Racing did that way back on the PS1.
what, 20, like,
Or did the open world.
oh yeah,
I remember on PS1, I playing a Crash Bandicoot kart racer. Like, you drove from.
point to point. Yeah.
So, like, it's definitely not a gimmick worth selling for Mario Kart.
I think if they're making these, if it is 24 races on one race, and you're going to need a massive course for that,
Yeah.
arguably making it a more open worldy thing where you're going to have that expansive world, a larger course would make sense, and with a larger amount of races on it.
I mean, larger course makes sense, but like to have an open world, like, or like an overworld where you drive from bit to bit, that definitely just a gimmick for the sake of a gimmick.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, 24 races is cool, but is that enough to be like, ooh, new Mario Kart? That's our new gimmick.
The visuals do look quite cool as well. Like, I think it's noticeable compared to Mario Kart 8 as well. Like, Mario's design is a bit more cartoonish a little bit. And you've seen the Donkey Kong as well, where it's like, he looks very different compared to...
A video I was watching said that they feel like it's Mario Kart has been slightly inspired by the movie, maybe.
Yeah. My immediate thought was it looks more like Wonder. You know, like Mario's design there, like compared to...
Yeah.
I think that was the thing I was thinking. But I can see the Mario Kart, I can see the movie bit as well.
I just hope 24 races isn't the new gimmick. That's not enough.
Yeah. I want my double dash mode. It means it's going to be a fucking massive roster as well.
Yeah, a double dash mode would be cool.
Yeah, give me my double dash mode, man.
But I mean, like, 8's whole thing was anti-grav. 7 was like...
The underwater and flying thing, yeah.
But this is what I'm saying, like, what's the next actual gimmick? Because 24 races is not a gimmick.
No.
That's a feature, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's not enough to be like, ooh, don't you want to buy the new Mario Kart? We got new courses, we got new characters, and 24 I'm like, that's really not enough.
I think it actually probably could be, you know. I think that is their new gimmick.
You reckon?
But think about it, though. Like,
it's a shit gimmick, though, isn't it?
The anti-grav thing was very much a nothing gimmick, though. Like, when you're racing on Mario Kart...
I'm not saying 7 and 8 were good gimmicks.
Yeah.
But it was a new thing that kind of added a little bit to, like, the race and the feel. Whereas, like, 24 races just adds more chaos.
I mean, maybe it's just an option as well. But I think there'll be more stuff coming through eventually. Like,
oh, yeah.
once we get the actual thing,
I think there's going to be an actual thing. That's why I'm like, to me, there's not like, cool, 24 races, nice feature. But, like, what's the actual gimmick? Like, what's the thing? What's the new thing in this game?
Time will tell. That is the main thing. We can only speculate right now on this. I mean, this whole episode's been speculation, basically.
Well, because nobody knows nothing except the leakers.
Soon. Yeah. Soon we'll have more information in April, so maybe we'll come back to this again at that point.
Who knows?
But I think we're going to wrap it up here, guys. Let us know in the comments what you think on Switch 2. Your thoughts. Are you expecting a lot from it? Are you expecting not much? Let us know. And yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button for future Cultured Boys videos. Check the links in our description. We have our podcast platforms there. And we'll see you guys next time for another Cultured Boys episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.